Welcome to Marvelous Disney, the podcast that discusses the most recent doings at one of the more dynamic divisions of the Walt Disney Company, which is, of course, Marvel Entertainment. This is entertainment writer Jim Hill, and my co-host, the amazing Aaron Adams, and I are recording this week's episode on Wednesday, December 28th, 2022. And Aaron, it is very appropriate we are recording today. Very significant date for Marvel fans, 100th anniversary of Stan Lee's birth. And
that's worth celebrating. Yeah, sure.
That it is. And in fact, I'm going to recommend to folks, in fact, we'll try to put this in the show notes. You did that wonderful tribute to Stan when we lost him a couple of years back. It's one of my favorite episodes of the series. This would have been our episode for the week of, I want to say, November 19th or thereabouts, after we lost Stan back on 2018. That one's well worth seeking out, folks. I honestly, Aaron, that's some of your best work. That said, though, just 4 hours ago, Marvel Entertainment posted a short video on YouTube, which features some of Stan's cameos from the various MCU films. But then a tagline of 100 years of dreaming, 100 years of creating, 100 years of Stan Lee. So this is an announcement of an original documentary celebrating Stan's life, which is going to debut on Disney Plus sometime in 2023. That's all that this subscription streaming service was willing to put out there for now. But Aaron and I will keep you posted on this project, and when we get an actual release date, we will let you know. Beyond that, Aaron, how was your holiday?
It was full of wonderful musical noise. I got a ukulele, so I've been playing the intro theme to Bob's Burgers for my wife.
Oh,
okay. Hold on, wait. Yeah, so that's where we're at right now. I'm playing Bob's Burgers on the ukulele.
That's great! Oh my God, that's killer! Wow.
And then,
okay.
She got me this two things that are just wild. One, I want you to look up automaton cover of Leonard Cohen's Hallelujah. An automaton is a Japanese musical toy that they give to children in Japan. Like we would give a recorder to kids here in school to learn how to play music. And it looks like a musical note, and the little bulb part is a head that you squeeze to make the mouth open and go wah, 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 wah. And then you move your finger up and down the stem, and it goes woo, woo, almost like a theremin type sound. And I thought, well, this is like just the cheesiest, silliest little thing that I will never be able to play. And we ended up looking at how to use it and found out that there is a subculture of people that play this on almost a professional level. And we ended up finding a copy of Leonard Cohen's Hallelujah played on the automaton, and I nearly pissed myself on the couch watching it because it is so funny. So please look that up because it's just good for the soul. And then the last thing I got, my wife found a limited print of a Neil Gaiman book of only 3,000 copies in existence. And I got copy 2067 of a story I never knew existed that is animated, their artwork done by one of his more favorite artists, and a little CD of him narrating the book as well. So I need to sit down and listen to Neil Gaiman narrate the story I never knew existed and look at the pictures and enjoy. It's the greatest treasure in the world. It's like finding One-Eyed Willie from, the Goonies or something. Like a treasure you never knew existed is out there, and all of a sudden it's in my lap. So, yeah, I can't wait to check that out more.
Cool. Wow. That sounds like a great holiday.
It was.
Holy cow. Okay. Well, folks, today's show will be a tiny bit of a departure from our usual format for Mud. Aaron and I will spend, as we always do, the first half of today's show discussing the Marvel-related news of the past week. But on the second half, we're going to look back at what happened in Marvel in 2022, and as well as take a peek out at 2023 and 2024. But first, the news, and as always, the news portion of today's episode of Marvelous Disney is brought to you by Storybook Destinations, trusted travel partner of the Jim Hill Media Podcast Network. For a worry-free travel experience every time, please book online at StorybookDestinations.com. Aaron, to follow up on last week's show, we were talking about some films that were coming out in 2024. To be specific, we were talking about Captain America: New World Order. That comes out May 2nd of 2024, followed by the Thunderbolts, which will be out in July 26th of that same year. And finally, Deadpool 3, which is November 3rd of 2024. And did you see the story that broke this past week that there seems to be a key element that links these three films that actually ties back to the Eternals?
Unfortunately, I've had my head deeper in the sand than an ostrich in fear, so I have not seen anything. Please tell me all about it. I'm excited to hear this one.
Okay, well, to be specific, we start with the Eternals. And in fact, we start with that element that frankly has confused a lot of MCU fans, which is that Celestial, because they stopped him from emerging, they prevented the destruction of Earth, which is a good thing.
Sure.
But the Eternals halted that in the final act of that Chloe Zhao movie. By the way, the Celestial that was halted, had he or she completed her emergence, they would have been called Tiamat the Communicator. So this is why that island, which is just made up of this creature's head and left hand, which is rising out of the Indian Ocean, is known as Tiamat Island.
You know, if only it would have been in Minnesota, they called it the Finger Lakes. Damn.
Okay. Is it Michigan? They talk about being, what, shaped like a giant mitten?
Yeah, the lower peninsula looks like a mitten. So I swear to goodness gracious, if you were to ask anyone from Michigan where you live, they will hold up their hand and they'll point to it and they will say the name of a town like Oscoda, and you'll go, oh, okay, and that will mean something to you. And
Okay.
So if
but they point at their hand.
Always. Even if you're from Detroit, and we all freaking know where Detroit is, they still point to the palm of their hand and go, right here. That's where I'm from.
Got it. Okay, so again, MCU fans, ever since Eternals came out in November 2021, it's like, what is the deal with the Celestial sticking up out of the Indian Ocean? Surely the people of Earth have noticed this by now. And to be honest, the only time it's been referenced was, do you remember that there's like a tenth of a second thing in the She-Hulk where, you know, she's looking at her laptop and there's this, at a news site, and there's just a giant man shape comes out of Indian Ocean. Well, it looks like all of this changes with Captain America: New World Order. Supposedly in the lead up, scientists land on Tiamat Island, which, by the way, is supposed to eventually be renamed Genosha.
Oh, hey now. Whoa, that's a big deal.
Okay.
See, now I was expecting left field, like they were going to build a ski resort off of Tiamat's nose or something really stupid. But now that you throw Genosha into the mix, I am full attention, sir. Continue.
And when the scientists get to Genosha, they discover an element that has never before been discovered on Earth. An adamantium? Am I pronouncing that right?
Well, yeah. So when I was a kid back in the 80s, I would think if I had a chunk of adamantium and I were to hold it up to my ear, I would be able to hear it saying, "Don't drink, don't smoke. What do you do? Don't drink, don't smoke." You remember Adam Ant and Goody Two Shoes, right, Jim?
There we go.
Okay. I thought it was just me. No,
yes. Okay. Yeah.
My wife thinks he's a snob because she's like, why is he talking down on people living the clean lifestyle? What a jerk. Anyway, that's beside the point.
Okay.
Adamantium is usually the word that I point to when I talk to parents about letting their kids read comics. Sometimes parents are like, oh, it's such a waste of time with the colors and the punching and the silliness. And I say, yeah, but, you know, I was, I think, 4 or 5 when I was sounding out in my bedroom the word adamantium, because it was interesting to the story. I didn't know what it meant. It was a weird thing. Even though it was fictional, it's a complex word. And we all agreed on a pronunciation, and we talked about it in school. But, I mean, when you get engaged in storytelling, you're not going to let the mispronunciation of a word stop you. And I think that's the gateway drug of comic books. You are so invested into the story that this big, long, complex word comes up. And you're like, what do I do? How do I read it? How do I say it? Because I got to get to the next panel and find out what happens. And adamantium is basically the metal that Wolverine is made out of. And, if we look at Black Panther and they've got vibranium, which is Captain America's shield. So does that mean that Genosha is going to have adamantium and they're going to mine that there?
Face it, the United States was willing to go to the very bottom of the ocean in its pursuit of vibranium.
And now they've got a new toy to look after. I don't even want that vibranium anymore now that we got this new stuff.
A lot of Phase 4 has been putting chess pieces on the board. And in fact, that's been a complaint from a lot of MCU fans to the effect of, okay, when does the story get started? When Wakanda Forever ended, we had Shuri and Namor sort of reaching an understanding to the effect of, we won't talk about your undersea kingdom, but you won't allow vibranium in the hand, to escape out into the world.
Right.
And we'll protect this as well. Talk to me about Genosha, because you made an interesting noise when that name bubbled up.
Well, that's where all of the mutants, it's like the secret hideaway of some mutants, and in the old-timey comic books, Genosha had dinosaurs living on the island and stuff like that. And so it was a wild and threatening place. However, all the mutants kind of lived there as well, not all of them, but many mutants lived there because it was a safe space where people weren't going because it had dinosaurs running about. It's kind of like if you took Jurassic Park and threw it as a layer of protection over a private rich island or something, and then threw a bunch of mutants on top of it. That's what you got. Nobody wants to go there. Nobody. So it's an interesting, wild, crazy place.
Okay, well, last show we were talking about President Thunderbolt Ross, the William Hurt character that Harrison Ford is taking on. Supposedly, he, as president, wants the United States to lay claim to this island, whereas Sam Wilson is not entirely sure that it's a good thing that the United States has an exclusive on adamantium.
Man, that's got a vibe of the Captain America Winter Soldier.
Winter Soldier.
Yeah. It had a lot of tones of Captain America Winter Soldier because it was Captain America disagreeing with whomever was in charge of S.H.I.E.L.D. at that time. I don't think you need helicarriers to be able to pinpoint around the world and take out threats until they've been properly identified, or whatever his moral argument was there. But again, it's getting down to, I'm the guy who's got the shield and I don't agree with your politics, Mr. Bubster. I'm going to go on Twitter and tweet negatively about you.
There's a part of me that actually likes that Sam is kind of picking up where Steve left off. On the other hand, if we move ahead to the Thunderbolts, evidently on the heels of whatever happens in New World Order, Ross sends the Thunderbolts. Their mission is to collect adamantium.
Wasn't Ross supposed to be president in one of these two? Do you remember which one it was? Was it the New World Order?
Actually, my understanding is when we meet him in Harrison with Harrison Ford playing him in New World Order, he is now president of the United States. So I'm thinking he stays in that role for Thunderbolts.
Oh man, it would be such a great cliffhanger though if Captain America is at odds with Thunderbolt, and then they finish by Ross getting elected president, and you're like, oh shit, we lost everything. That almost like Thanos 1 kind of moment at the end of Infinity War. Just the whole idea that it didn't go the way that you planned, and sometimes that happens. And then Ross comes out leading the charge on the front side of Thunderbolts. Could be interesting, but anyway, I'm putting carts before horses.
That's an intriguing idea, and yes, the last time we saw General Thunderbolt Ross, he was a general. He was
right. He's still part of the military machine.
Yeah, so I'm kind of intrigued if that's the way they'd go with that character. Then if we jump ahead to Deadpool 3, I mean, obviously you were mentioning that this is what Wolverine Logan is made of. And what's also been kind of interesting is that Hugh Jackman has been out there talking about Deadpool 3. And first of all, he flat out was telling folks to the effect of, look, in this movie, Wade Wilson and Logan hate each other. That he's going to be spending an awful lot of time punching Deadpool in the head. So,
no. That's not exactly how that's going to play out, Jim, because he's not going to be punching. He's going to be lopping off like arms and legs and then watching Deadpool regenerate just for the sheer amusement of it, right? They should have the most twisted, sick relationship in all of the MCU where anytime Logan gets pissed at Wade, he just lops off a body part and walks away and leaves Deadpool there for 5 minutes to regenerate. That's the way that it needs to play out. No other way. I stand firmly by it. Feige will have words out behind the schoolhouse if we have to over this one. I'm adamant, Jim.
I'm beginning to
adamantium.
Okay, I'm just kind of intrigued about the whole. It's still going to hold the R rating. So they say.
I mean, just think about, if you remember in the first Deadpool, I mean, Wade lopped off his own hand to get out of the handcuff that he, when Colossus was dragging him off the bridge. I mean, if Wade's willing to do that to himself, you know that Wolverine has just got to pull out the claws, lop off a part, and walk away and just call him something foul. And, the two of them should just have 5 minutes of expletives, nothing more, just a scene of them swearing at each other, and then a lop, lop, lop of, and then Wade tries to do it back, and he gets like halfway through Wolverine and goes, and he gets stopped by the metal, and it's like, yeah, see, that's why we're different. We're different like that. I can go right through you like butter, brother, but, you stop halfway through because I am made of adamantium. Don't drink, don't smoke. What do you do?
I have to admit, now that
I'm having fun, Jim. This is a great idea.
No. For me, these three movies positioned in succession like this, I'm just fascinated to see how this is going to play out. But plans can change for various reasons. And did you see, just this past week, Ryan Coogler did an interview with the New York Times where he talked about his original storyline for the Black Panther sequel. And the setup, remember, back in Avengers Infinity War, we saw T'Challa get dusted. When he returns, after we see the Hulk basically undo what Thanos had done, 5 years have passed. And when he wanders back into his life, he discovers that prior to the blip, T'Challa had impregnated Nakia. So when T'Challa returns to Earth and gets dedusted, that child, a boy, is now 5 years old. And not only that, but Nakia, after mourning, T'Challa has moved on with her life and has married a man from Haiti. And the two of them are now raising this 5-year-old boy who, just like in Wakanda Forever, is called Toussaint. This is the son of the Black Panther. And so that eventually he will have to, this boy living in Haiti will have to rise up and assume the throne. And so T'Challa now tries to forge a relationship with his son, but he's been out of this kid's life for the first 5 years of his existence. So it's problematic, but T'Challa is trying. And he and Nakia effectively co-parent, and 3 years pass, and it's now time for a crucial rite of passage for T'Challa's son. There's this Wakandan tradition where the son and the father go off in the wilderness and have to live off the land, live by their wits for 10 days, 2 weeks. I'm not exactly sure on the timeline here, but T'Challa takes Toussaint to Wakanda. They're in the middle of beginning this rites of passage. And in the middle of this, Namor rises up from the depths and threatens Wakanda. And so now T'Challa has to deal with Tolakan. That's, I think, how they pronounce the Undersea Kingdom that Namor is in charge of. But he has to save his kingdom and at the same time make sure that his son completes this rite of passage. And so the movie was supposed to be about the difficulty of balancing work and family. Only in this case, T'Challa's work is being king, protecting his kingdom, while he's also trying to forge a real connection with his understandably estranged son. And right. Coogler was really proud of it, thought that it was going to give Chadwick a lot of fun stuff to do. And, he could be heroic, but he could, the first Black Panther movie really was about sons. And what Coogler was looking forward to with this film was to make it about fathers and the challenges that fathers face. And he had just finished the script and was getting ready to send it to Chadwick when he learned of Boseman's passing in August of 2020. And after a suitable period of time, Ryan waded back into the project, rewrote the sequel and change it from a father-son story to a meditation on grief and vengeance, and which was centered around T'Challa's sister Shuri.
Out of all of that, the one thing that jumps out at me the most is that there's a 3-year time jump forward where the child goes from 5 to 8, because we've already had a 5-year time jump from Endgame to Infinity War. And I wonder if at any point where, like, Ryan Coogler shows up at Kevin Feige's office with the script, and he's like, ta-da! And then Kevin's reading it, and he gets to 3-year time jump, and he's like, hold on a second. And then he's got to make 5 phone calls to 5 other people who are currently writing several other movies. And they go, hey, how does this line up with you? Where is your timeline exactly? I mean, the MCU is currently in our future. And if directors just willy-nilly go, and there's a 5-year time jump, you move the whole damn universe. You know, it's not just the kid and T'Challa that age, 3 years. It's the whole freaking, Tom Holland, Spider-Man ages 3 years. All of that has repercussions. And I wonder, I'm sure that Feige gives them creative freedom to dream up whatever you want. But at some point, things like time jumps could be problematic for the entirety of the MCU, and I wonder if they've got a rule in place about, hey, man, if you want to have a time jump, you better call me first before you write that in there.
Interesting point.
But beyond that, the plot that you described sounded very reminiscent of Prey, the sequel to Predator, where it's, the young girl who wants to go out and do the rite of passage by killing the lion or whatever it is. And then she's got to kill that's when Namor shows up. And she's got to take him down and save her tribe and be the standout hero. That's her rite of passage. It seems kind of similar of that, the youngsters got a rite of passage. Namor shows up and we all have to, prove our mettle on that day. So.
Interesting. Speaking of films that might have been made, just in the past week, a bunch of storyboards from the Gambit movie, the one that Channing Tatum, these actually surfaced online. And Lauren Schuler Donner began talking about doing a Gambit movie with Channing Tatum as early as 2014. And in fact, the actor signed on for the project in May of that year, and it cycled through a bunch of different directors. Rupert Wyatt, Doug Liman, and even Gore Verbinski were attached to direct this at one time or another, and really got close, Aaron. At one point, the Gambit movie actually had a release date of March 13th, 2020, but then the development of the movie got placed on hold when Disney expressed an interest in buying certain television and movie assets for 20th Century Fox. And when the deal was completed in May of 2019, one of the very first things Disney did was put the Gambit movie on hold. But again, if you Google it right now, you can look at boards from this film that have surfaced just this past week online.
Channing Tatum is an interesting character because every time I just look at his face, I go, I think I would dislike him so much. And every time he speaks, I go, God, he's so funny and adorable. I love this guy. We need more of him. He's a national treasure. I don't know what I think I'm just threatened. He's so handsome. Every time he's on screen, my wife is like, hey, hello. And I'm like, hey, what? So maybe that's it. I don't know.
I'm dealing with the exact same thing with Nancy and Tyler Hines. I think his name is. Okay. He's a Hallmark actor, and in fact, he has his fans online call themselves Heinies.
Okay.
So but
we all have our cross to bear.
We do. Okay. Following up on another thing we talked on last week's show, we mentioned that the Echo limited series evidently has been having some production issues, and I think we mentioned on last week's show that it had been pushed to December of 2023. Evidently, it needs more work because the word now is Echo will debut on that subscription streaming service in early 2024. And what's now being talked about is that there will be reshoots which will evidently be folded into Daredevil Born Again because, obviously they share characters and they share worlds. And Charlie Cox was out there this past week talking about this relaunch of the series and how it's going to be less violent than the Netflix series. To be specific,
already booted that. No.
All okay. Right, well, what Charlie says is that it will be dark, but probably won't be as gory. Let's take the things that really work with the show, but can we broaden? Can we appeal to a slightly younger audience without losing what works? And we'll probably get to see a lot of this as a work in progress, because this shoot for Daredevil Born Again is the longest thing to date for a limited series for Disney Plus. They've scheduled an 11-month long period of principal photography. It's going to go from February of next year all the way through to the holiday season of 2023. And then will debut in 2024. And it's going to be kind of interesting because Echo and Daredevil Born Again will supposedly basically be released right on top of one another.
And Daredevil will be the longest series that we've had thus far from Disney Plus streaming, right?
All true.
All right. So
all true.
I wonder if they're going to... Was Echo the series greenlit after they really liked the performance of the actress, or did they have that in the works from the get-go?
I want to say that when they were shooting Hawkeye, all anybody could talk about was this young woman who's playing Echo is amazing. Sure. And it was from there, they began talking about, well, let's kick the tires of doing a spinoff here.
I wonder if they're going to end up having a similar thing with Agatha Coven show. Because that was
Coven of Chaos.
Yeah, because that was another one where they went, oh, this character is a breakout star. I think she's wonderful, and then you build an entire series around her, and then you actually end up, you got a story that you think is solid and sturdy, and then you start putting all the pieces together, and it's just not quite clicking for some reason. And I think it's because these were reactionary shows. They were like, oh wow, this is neat. Let's play more in the sandbox. But they didn't have a great idea of what they were meant to do with that to propel the story forward. They just were caught up in the moment. And I wonder if that's part of the reason why they're having problems, is these weren't the neat fitting puzzle pieces of the MCU. Like Captain America, very neat puzzle piece. Clicks into any Avengers story without any issues at all. Agatha, Coven of Darkness, that's a little bit specific. It's a little bit on the magic-y side, a little bit on the Halloween side. It's got different shapes that don't quite click in as neatly. And so I just wonder if that's kind of what they're dealing with right now.
That is just a wonderful segue to the second half of today's show. When we get back, we are going to talk about things like Agatha, Coven of Chaos, as we look at what happens in the Marvel sphere in 2023 and 2024.
The family that vacations together stays together. At least, that was the plan. Except now, the dastardly desk clerk is saying he can't confirm your connecting rooms.
Wait, what?
That's right, ma'am. You have rooms 201 and 709.
No, we cannot be 5 floors away from our kids.
The doors have double locks. They'll be fine.
When you want connecting rooms confirmed before you arrive, it matters where you stay.
Welcome to Hilton. I see your connecting rooms are already confirmed.
Hilton, for the stay.
Wish you could become a morning person? You know the type, up before the sun, early morning runs, first one to the office with donuts and a smile. How do they do it? Easy. With the new Galaxy Watch 8, sleep tracking and personalized insights from Samsung Health help you improve so you can wake up to a whole new you. One who, dare I say it, skips the snooze? It's possible. Train your sleep with Galaxy Watch 8. Learn more at Samsung.com. Requires compatible Samsung Galaxy phone, Samsung Health app, and Samsung account.
Does it ever feel like you're a marketing professional just speaking into the void? But with LinkedIn ads, you can know you're reaching the right decision makers, a network of 130 million of them, in fact. You can even target buyers by job title, industry, company, seniority, skills, and did I say job title? See how you can avoid the void and reach the right buyers with LinkedIn ads. Spend $250 on your first campaign and get a free $250 credit for the next one. Get started at linkedin.com/campaign. Terms and conditions apply.
If we're looking back at 2022, we have to acknowledge that it started with a bang with how well Spider-Man No Way Home continued to do. That John Watts film was originally released December 17th of 2021, but stayed at the top of the box office for weeks.
While I'm thinking about this, I also believe that Spider-Man No Way Home is now the only Marvel film that has any sort of director's cut or alternate version. because everything
are
I've
we
got,
talking about the more fun stuff?
Exactly.
Version?
Yeah, with additional footage, because I believe every MCU property film I've got, whether it be Blu-ray or digital, I mean, there is only one cut. We don't get director's cut of Captain America ever, right? What you get is the official Disney branded, Marvel sanctioned movie, and there's no other version of anything. And so, yeah, I think that longer, funner cut of Spider-Man may be the only MCU film that you can go out and purchase and actually has more footage added into the MC where, nothing else does it I can think of.
Interesting. Interesting. Well, speaking of which, though, Spider-Man No Way Home goes on to sell 1.9 billion worth of tickets worldwide, is now the 6th highest grossing film of all time. But then we have this weird lag. No Marvel, nothing significant in February. It's not till the tail end of March that we get Moon Knight. Just 2 days later, Morbius, which you and I had been watching that slow motion car wreck make its way through production and reshoots and all that. And, it opens on April 1st. And that Spunk project started at $70 million with the reshoots. I think that they will admit they spent $95 million and only made $167 million at the worldwide box office. So I don't think we're seeing Morbius 2 anytime soon.
Oh, sigh of relief. I feel safe. It's like being told the boogeyman is not under my bed. I can sleep safe tonight.
but remember how people talked about that scene at that tacked on scene.
Yeah, that makes no sense. That it just breaks all the continuity. Like, I've been broken out of jail. I don't know how or why. I just materialized. However, I'm going to come to the conclusion it was Spider-Man from a different universe. Sure, okay. Great writing, guys.
But the weird thing is the whole other universe thing. When it's done well, it works. I mean, we saw on May 6th of last year, that's when Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness debuted, and people just ate that up, particularly after the good time they've had with Spider-Man No Way Home and how Doctor Strange had been such a big part of that film. They were primed to go back to the theater to get a little bit more, Benedict Cumberbatch, and it did ridiculously well at the box office, $955 million worldwide. May 27th, Guardians of the Galaxy Cosmic Rewind opened at Epcot, and Mr. Testa loves this coaster. It's a wonderful 3-minute long ride. Just this past trip in December, I finally did the full queue, which has a lot of lovely Easter eggs and nods to the original Guardians film and all that. But I've been told by friends of the show that this thing cost $450 million to build. And the last time Disney spent that amount, they got a whole theme park. I mean, wow. That's what it costs to build.
Is that inflation in the last few years? Did like the price? Well, first off, was that price tag supposed to be? Was it budgeted for lower, and did they go over? Was that a first step there in any of that, or was that the actual budget?
Whenever I bring up this topic and try to get people to go on the record,
it's like roaches scattering when you turn on the lights. Is that it?
Oh, it just nobody wants to talk about how much this cost. Right. But again, I think also it's important to remember that this was built in the middle of the pandemic. There were supply chain issues. There's a lot of reasons why it wound up costing that much, and it is a wonderful ride. It really is. But is it $450 million wonderful? I don't know.
The only thing that irks me about it is where they screwed up the advertising by having a different voice actor for Rocket, and they couldn't get Peter Quill, so they got some dude to sit there and fall asleep with a helmet on. And it's like, if you've been, if you take all the time to actually use the proper cast from the films and film stuff to incorporate into the ride, couldn't you have at least gotten Peter Quill to say a line that could have been used for the commercial? And because it's like everything was like A+, 5 stars, going perfect, and then they trip and stumble on the advertising and look like they cheapened out by getting fake actors. But actually, if you actually go to the park, it's the real people. That's so weird.
It is. It's just there are so many stories to that effect. For example, we were talking earlier about Harrison Ford. And when Disney opened the Indiana Jones Adventure at Disneyland, Disney was in the process of hiring him to be the voice of the lead gorilla in Tarzan. He was going to be effectively playing Tarzan's father. And somewhere along the line, the idea was that, well, we'll have him in the studio doing that, and we can get him to record lines for the Indiana Jones Adventure, because we do have the character, the actual an animatronic version of Indy in the ride. And somewhere along the line, Disney bobbled that so badly that Ford not only would not record the lines for the ride, he left the cast of Tarzan. And it's always one of these things where it's like, well, what happened there?
Right.
And I've basically been told by friends in Imagineering and Disney Animation, it's like, well, a couple people have to die first before I can tell you that story. So,
oh, well, that's a good story.
Hang in there. Eventually, we'll get that
All right.
story. All right. Anyway, moving on now to June. June 8th, we got the lovely Ms. Marvel limited series, and very much now looking forward to seeing what that young actress does when The Marvels comes out next July. Then, jumping ahead to, speaking of July, that's when we got Taika Waititi's Thor: Love and Thunder, which did very well at the box office. Made $750 million. A tail end of July, on the 20th thereabout, the Avengers Campus opens the Walt Disney Studios Park in Paris. And that's where we get to see not only yet another version of Web Slingers, but a brand new reimagining of that Parks Rock and Roller Coaster, which now becomes Avengers Assemble Flight Force, which is built around Iron Man and Captain Marvel.
Oh, hey, there's been a rumor, by the way, about Robert Downey Jr. coming back as Iron Man for a scene in Armor Wars, and it was like Armor Wars and something else that was going to be connected to it as, I think, a series.
I have seen the same things, and it just, again, it's a story that excites me. I just wish I had another source or two on it.
I'm sure it will just be like a hologram or a flashback, where Tony's reading, hey, I was working on this project for years, and they found the chip, and all of a sudden, boom, there's Robert Downey Jr., and the audience will gasp. Oh, I forgot. Oh, Robert. Oh, he's so glorious.
He did nice work.
He did, absolutely.
Oh, and speaking of doing nice work, August 18th, we got She-Hulk, and I genuinely enjoyed that series. I dearly hope that they circle back on that character. And you had mentioned Spider-Man No Way Home, the more fun stuff edition, that actually debuted in theaters here in the States on September 1st. Then on September 27th, we got some kind of disturbing news because, face it, Basim Tariq has been associated with the Blade reboot, and he walked away from that project. I want to say they've since got a new director. I'm blanking the name of the gentleman who's taken on the project now. Moving on now to October 7th, that's when we got the Werewolf by Night special that was so much fun, and I'm really hoping that based on how the response that Man-Thing got on that show, that it looks like there's a Man-Thing special being prepped for next year. And then October 25th, James Gunn announced that he had just been signed to become the new co-head of DC Films.
And immediately fans retaliated from the DC universe saying, fire James Gunn, he's not going to do Snyderverse. And it's like, well, yeah, because, Zack Snyder wasn't hired in this group. So, well, yeah, why is everybody surprised by that? Oh, my goodness. But, yeah, like right now, currently, if you do your trend on Twitter, I believe there's currently right now a fire James Gunn.
Yeah, it's just, I want to say it's Zachary Levi this past week, again, who's got his Shazam movie coming out next year, who went on social media to the effect of, leave the effing guy alone. To the effect, let him do his job. He just got hired.
He hasn't had a chance to do anything as of yet official.
Yeah. So let's circle back on the whole James Gunn situation in 2 and 3 years when there's actually some TV shows and some movies to look at. Anyway, November 11th, we got Black Panther Wakanda Forever, which is still chugging away at the box office. Currently sits at 803 million worldwide. Also, I want to say I recently heard that it will be showing up on Disney Plus in February. So don't have an exact date on that, but when we do, Aaron and I will share that. And then just a week or so after that, real shocking news. Bob Iger was back in as Disney's CEO, and Bob Chapek was on his way out.
Do we need the clip from The Godfather for this? Where it's like, every time I think I'm out, they keep pulling me back in.
I don't think, Bob Iger quite has Al Pacino's hair from that film. Which, that was impressive hair. On November 25th, we got the wonderful Guardians of the Galaxy Holiday Special. And then just 4 days after that, we got the Guardians of the Galaxy, the version of Cosmic Rewind that featured the Holiday Mix, which wasn't quite as good as the original, but it's still a lot of fun. Phase 5 officially gets underway in the MCU on February 17th, when we get Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. By the way, I was in Lunchbox, and I don't think I was supposed to know this, but I'm, at one of those merchandise tables, and I see that, here's a piece of merch for Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. So I pick it up, and it's MODOK, a keychain of MODOK. And have we heard anything about MODOK?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he's going to be in the Comic-Con footage that was revealed, there was like a half-second glimpse of MODOK that everybody kind of freaked out over. Yeah, because it didn't look anything like him, which is why most people missed it. And, the Super Sleuths put together, that was a super brief peek at MODOK. The blurry screen grab that went up, most people were like, that can't be. And then there was a toy that was released that really confirmed, oh, crap, that really is MODOK. So my assumption right now is that we're going to get this mechanical robotic-looking version of MODOK, but somewhere near the finale, they're going to take a mask off, per se, and we're going to get the actual fleshy features of MODOK's face, is my guess. Because I don't think they would depart that far. But who knows? They've done crazier stuff, right?
This is true. Forgive me for throwing this out there, but do we know who Bill Murray is playing yet in this movie?
No, but I mean, the way that he's greeting, was it Michelle Pfeiffer's character? It seems like it could be a love interest, an old flame, so he's some sort of now rival for the affections to Hank Pym. Okay. That little love triangle dynamic going on. Oh, old boyfriend back? Oh, damn it. Yeah.
No. Okay. I so enjoyed Patton Oswalt as MODOK in that stop-motion series that Stupid Buddies did, that, there's a part of me like, ooh, Bill Murray as MODOK. Ooh, that could be interesting.
No, what would be crazy is if they had a deal with Patton Oswalt and they actually end up using his face by the end of the movie as the MODOK. You're like, oh my God, the animation version is now canon.
But isn't Patton already in the MCU? Didn't we see Patton playing?
Well, in S.H.I.E.L.D., yeah, he was an agent, and then he played like a twin version of himself or something, or a cousin through time.
Also remember in the tail end of the Eternals, isn't he like a dwarf character or something like that? The Harry Styles character, part of the supporting staff. Did we meet
as a voiceover? Maybe, I don't recall.
Okay, all right. Well, moving on now to spring of 2023, we get Secret Invasion, the limited series. That's followed on May 5th by Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Then, charging ahead to summer of 2023, we get Loki Season 2. July 28th, we get The Marvels. Then fall of 2023, we get Ironheart. Is this a project you were thinking about, Robert Downey Jr.
Yeah, it had to be, because I know that they were connected with the suits, and yeah. Okay, duly noted. We were just talking about Echo, which again
was supposed to be shifted to December of 2023, now pushed to early 2024. And what's interesting is that same window of time is also when Agatha Coven of Chaos is supposed to debut. And given what Aaron was saying at the top of the show, I'm wondering if that debut time is going to hold.
I mean, you would think that they would be pushing that to Halloween time of year, just because it's, witches. That's the theme.
Yeah, no. That's a good choice. Spring of 2024, supposedly Daredevil Born Again, the series, 20 episodes, gets underway. And then, as we were talking at the top of the show, May 3rd, 2024, we get Captain America New World Order. July 26, 2024, we get Thunderbolts, and then in November, we get our Deadpool 3. Before we wrap up here, it's important to acknowledge that Disney and Marvel Studios aren't the only ones making Marvel-related movies. We should also talk about what's going on with Spunk. And June 2nd of next year, we get the highly anticipated Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse animated feature. Then October 6th of 2023, we get our Kraven the Hunter film, and a little concerning, that was originally supposed to come out January 23rd of next year.
Do you remember when we saw behind-the-scenes photos of, was it Aaron Taylor Johnson kind of strapped to the side of a car with no shoes on? And wearing, I want to say, like tuxedo pants or something. I don't want to say it's in trouble or anything, but it seems like it's been in the works for a while, and they haven't had any good news coming out of that direction yet. Outside of, hey, look what we've got. They've been really quiet on the Kraven front.
That October 6th window of time, that's when the Venom movies have come out and done really, really well. So, it not necessarily a bad thing for them to move a Spunk project in that direction. On the other hand, Kraven the Hunter was supposed to come out January 23rd, 2023. It's worth noting that on January 24th, 2024 is when Il Morto is supposed to arrive in theaters. So isn't that based on just one or two issues of a Spider-Man spinoff? A Mexican wrestler, right?
Yeah, and I have no idea about any of what they're doing with it or how it came up, or it just seems like Sony has got a sponge and they're trying to get every last drop out of it and scraping the bottom of the barrel of, what does this license grant us the ability to do? And if legal said, hey, we got a character, he's a Mexican wrestler and he's only in 2 episodes, you're like, hey, that's a thing. That is indeed a thing. Let's try and make money off of it.
Well, now it's interesting you say this, because if we pause here for a sec, there's 2 more films come out in 2024, which we'll talk about in a moment. But there are no less than 5 other Spider-Man related projects that have been announced that don't have dates yet. First of all, we have Venom 3. We also have Spider-Women. We also have a project called Silk Spider Society. We have a Sinister Six film that has, that's been in the works since the Amazing Spider-Man 2. And then, of course, we have the next Spider-Man trilogy starring Tom Holland. But anyway, to circle back to 2024, what's fascinating for me is that January, February, and March of next year, there are Spunk projects coming out. Again, we have El Morto on January 24th. Then on February 16th, we have Madam Web. And then the one film I know will hold its release date because, people are really looking forward to this thing, and that is Spider-Man Beyond the Spider-Verse, and that's supposed to arrive in theaters March 29th of 2024 and be the follow-up to, of course, Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. Look, we touched on James Gunn taking over DC, so I think we should just spend a brief second bringing folks up to speed about what's going on that side of the street, because these are kind of the remaindered projects before James and his team get going. June 16th of next year, we have the Flash movie coming out. Then on December 25th, we have a sequel to Aquaman. We have Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. And then finally, October 24th, 2024, we have a sequel to The Joker, a musical, if you can believe it, by Todd Phillips, called Follies Adieu. But there we go. We have a crazy amount of Marvel material and also some DC films headed our way. And
I wonder if anyone within the DC realm is worried with the combination of Zaslav liking to write things off for tax reasons and James Gunn saying, I'm okay with a clean slate for the DC universe. What if Zaslav was like, I could use an extra $30 or $40 million to write off, let's say, the Flash movie. Even though it's done, I could get some money for it now. I mean, what if they get really shrewd that way and some of the things that we think are complete and on the calendar and are safe suddenly get jerked around a little bit?
Well, I have to say some of the stories that have been coming out about The Flash, about how Gal Gadot and Henry Cavill's cameo appearances as respectively Wonder Woman and Superman have already been cut from their project, and that's a little concerning.
Yeah, I think instead of, because if you continue giving them teases, well, for example, the Black Adam film that ended originally with, I believe it was like the chest of Superman, but the head was still kind of in the clouds or the fog of the shot and not quite revealed. And then people went all crazy for it, and they're like, okay, get Henry, let's actually finish the shot. And then they kind of added him in after the fact. And then he says, I'm going to be Superman, and everyone's happy. And then all of a sudden they turn around a couple of days later and like, actually, I'm not going to be Superman anymore. It all went sideways, and everyone's now, boo, James Gunn, you evil, evil human being. So I would think that if you did have a movie coming out like The Flash, it'd be like, yeah, let's cut these little cameos if we can, because that's just going to make people like whetting their appetite for a meal that will never come. And
that's an interesting
and if
point.
they're not like super dependent upon the story being told and they're only showing up for a glimpse, then yeah, I can see that cut being super easy for them to make in that mentality of, let's not get them excited for a thing that's never going to happen. Let's just tone it down, get this done and over with, and then move on to what our next project is.
Interesting point. Okay. Again, folks, that's a look ahead at 2023 and 2024. But Mr. Adams and I will be returning next week and picking up pretty much where we left off here. Looking at what Marvel's got in the works, and for example, I'm going to start working the phones as soon as we get done here to find out if we do have a release date yet for that Stan Lee documentary. But like I said, if you really want to hear some good stuff, go check out our archive for November of 2018. You're going to find a wonderful piece that Aaron put together that really is worth revisiting. But in the meantime, Aaron, if folks want to keep tabs on what you're up to, where can they find you on social media?
Well, for the time being, still at Twitter, at Azaprod, AZAPROD, and I've got a new home as well, some swank, luxurious accommodations over at Patreon for a brand new podcast starting in January. January 5th is our launch date, and that will be the 32nd Street Podcast, 32ND Street Podcast. Join us for the conversation about advertising trickery that ads use to get you to buy stuff you don't need with money you don't have to impress people you don't like.
Well, as long as we're plugging podcasts here, let me mention we also have a couple of other shows here at the Jim Hill Media Podcast Network you might want to check out. We, of course, have Disney Dish, which I do with Len Testa. Just earlier today, I recorded a brand new fine-tuning with Drew Taylor. And in fact, this time tomorrow, I will probably be sitting down with Brian Gahn and doing a new Looking at Lucasfilm. So welcome you to check those out. By the way, if you could do Aaron and I a favor, if you could head over to Apple Podcasts and rate and recommend the show you're listening to right now, Marvelous Disney. By the way, if you really, really, really like what you hear here, if you want to head over to Bandcamp and subscribe, that would be helpful. And as long as we're again, just like Aaron, I'm still on Twitter, that just, right there on deck, rearranging the deck chairs. But yeah, you can find me on Twitter and Instagram as Jim Hill Media, and over on Facebook as Jim Hill Media News. And I think that's going to do it for now. Want to wish all of you folks a very happy new year. And come back in 2023, and we'll be here with some more shows.